welcome to the Jeremy Mullins podcast, where we take a deep dive into different educational topics to help you optimize your life. I am Jeremy, your host, here today again with my co-host Reno. How are you, my man?
I'm wonderful.
Rocking and rolling.
That's right. Getting the week started.
I love it. I love it. As we said in the previous podcast, we're going to try to do a little better of shouting out our sponsors of the podcast. So once again, thank you to GreenUp Wealth, who is our financial sponsor. When I say financial sponsor, they are financial gurus that are partners inside of the podcast that both you and I use for our financial advisors, for our retirement and our future, and our kids' future, which we'll talk about kids a little bit today on today's podcast. And also to the Summit Clinics who, once again, you are actually, which is kind of cool. I can't wait to talk about, blood work and what your traditional doctors, kind of said with your numbers versus, how the Summit practitioners are going to, tackle and address your stuff. Right. So, big thank you to them for being partners of the podcast. And then once again, our unofficial partner, which has made all this possible, allowing me to be in a remote position and to do the podcast, Phorm. So thanks, guys and gals.
That's right. Yeah, all of them. Honestly, I mean, we could be doing this without them, but we are way more successful and way more set up for success for the future with them. And
Yes.
we're excited to help.
Allowing us to help people and and I think we've said this before, like, not that this would be a full-time job for us, but we want to get to where, it could be, right? Like we're putting out, whether it be daily, education or different platforms, whatever the case may be, right? Both of us love what we do as our main full-time job that takes up, the majority of our time, and I think that's the reason I say I wouldn't want to do it, right? I enjoy coaching people, and this is just for me an extension of that, but I don't think I ever want to give up the true coaching aspect of people.
Yeah, no, this is, and the way I see it, I'm not in the nutrition space at all, but as far as providing value of like me getting to produce these podcasts, me getting to do these things and see the positive changes in people's lives, this is more of like we get to provide value in our full-time jobs, but this is just an added plus of it all 100% value. I mean, that's just what this is.
100%. And the podcast is really an extension of what we're going to talk about today, which is, leading from the front and showing, especially our children, how to behave, how to react, what to see, right? And, I think we have to understand this as parents. Like we are the first line defense when it comes to building habits in our kids, right? And if we look at anything that we've spoken on the podcast, we led out the podcast by saying that everything that we have success in life is habit driven, right? Whether that be financial success, whether that be entrepreneur success, whether that be your wellness success, it is habit driven. Because whether we like it or not, we are a reflection of our habits and our choices over the last 90 to 120 days, right? No matter where you're at, right? Financially, and I know that's short term, right? You could be moving in a different direction. Like, well, Jeremy, I'm still $20,000 in debt, and I've been doing everything you said for the last 90 days. Cool, Roger that. But you were 40,000 in debt before that. So we're moving in the right direction, so I think that's, understanding that when someone understands, that people who are habit driven will generally have success in what they want to have success in.
That's right. If you implement your habits, your successful habits, your positive return is going to be huge. I said it, I think the first episode, the micro changes, the mini micro changes lead to macro changes long term. It's just like you take your photos in your first Phorm app, you're not going to see anything from maybe day to day, week to week.
Yeah.
But when you zoom out in that 90-day period, 120 days, you'll see a lot of difference.
Yeah. And, I think it's one of the cases of like, and we've made this mistake as parents, right? Like, we get caught up in some of the things that are blessings or wants with our kids, right? Like they want to throw football. Like Brady wants to play outside. Bree wants to play outside, right? But their number one job right now, right? And this is how we have to educate in the habits. Okay, you got to take care of your number one job, right? For me, my number one job is taking care of people within the first Phorm app. I have to be called up. I have to take care of those people before we can film this. right? And that's the reason you and I don't have set times, right? We have to take care of our number one job before we move on to our wants, you know? So I think that is something that we have to instill in our kids is like, hey, in order to play Fortnite, in order to play Xbox, in order to look at your football cards, basketball cards, whatever the case may be, you have to take care of your responsibilities first, right? And we've done that to build habits. Like our kids love checklists. So they have morning checklists and evening checklists. So they come in and they've got to check off this, this, and this before they can move on to something else.
No, that's a good habit. And I see it all over your social media along with everyone else. Um, I love that your kids are kind of always outside. And I mean, I'm not there in between each post, but it seems that that is their want. They're always morning, noon, and night. They're always outside doing something. So it's been awesome to see.
Yeah. And, like I said, we just try to set it up to where, they take care of their stuff first, right? Being their schoolwork and things of that before they move on to something else. And I think this creates that habit of them knowing that they have to take care of their responsibilities first, right? And, when you're talking about this topic about habits and kids and leading, like it remembers, Sal Frisella did an education. He does education every Monday to our first Phorm staff, right? And, to a degree, though a lot of the individuals who work there are younger, right? And, he relates it from his kids to some of the staff. And I wrote down these 10 things. And I don't know how old these notes are, but I think they're 10 powerful things that if you are over younger kids, right? And I say, remember, that's relative, right? Because hey, if you're 55 years old, a 28-year-old's a kid. You know what I'm saying? So, or we're speaking to our own kids and once again, giving Sal the credit for these, in the senses, I took notes in my own words, but this is driven, from him. And number one on that list was most successful people are habit driven, right? And my notes underneath this for the wellness is walk daily, right? Drink 120 ounces of water, protein with each meal or each snack. And those are things that go into what I teach, right? Because once again, those things are habit driven to see people have success within their journey, right? Number two, find your why, find your reason. And we know this from, military training is internal motivation is the best. External motivation is short term, right? You piss me off. I want to beat Reno in whatever, dominoes. I wouldn't say golf because top golf, maybe top golf I could. Not regular golf, but I think I could maybe get you in top golf because I can just
You
skirt
might be able to
score
get me.
points. External motivation, while you can use it short term, it's the internal motivation that's going to last longer and be good. So you have to find your why of what you're doing, right? Whether that be in a parent, whether that be your wellness journey, whether that be, retire millionaire, whatever the case may be, you have to find your why in that. Number three, respect is earned. You earn it based on your actions, not your words. Don't get caught up in social media, kids, right? So listeners, don't get caught up in social media. I try my best, but what I put on social media is what you get, right? You see my family, you see sometimes the struggles, and you see progress photos of people I work with. That's what I want to put on social media. Nothing else, right? I don't want to put, good photos of me and be like, oh, Jeremy's super lean just because it's an angle or something like that. No, you're going to get real life because I think that earns respect. And you earn that based on your actions, not on your words. Number four, life is not always fair, right?
Sure isn't.
Control what you can control. Focus on the positives. Hunt the good stuff. Life is not always fair, right? I'm sitting here right now with this tore bicep tendon, and you can be like, oh, poor me, poor me. Like, okay, it is what it is. Tackle it, move forward, right? Life will not always be fair. Take your obstacles, let them be obstacles, not let them be excuses. Number five, and I think kids are good at this. I think adults really struggle. Don't be afraid to fail. Failing is just a chance to learn. If you make the same mistake over and over, that is on you, right? But when you fail, you learn from it. Fall forward, okay? Life rewards people who learn from their mistakes. Remember that. Life will reward the people who learn from their mistakes. Number six, learn to take calculated risks. Okay. We talk about this in the financial world, multiple times. You have to take risks in life to be successful, but they need to be calculated. Okay. You can't just throw caution to the wind and not take anything into consideration when doing stuff, but you have to take calculated risks. You have to push yourself, right? Injuries may occur when you push yourself, but you have to take calculated risks. stand up to bullies. I think this day and age, this needs to be said. Stand up to bullies. Whether you know the person that's being wronged or not, stand up for them, right? Be nice to strangers. Someone's not being nice, stand up. Stand up to bullies, right? Because if we don't, nothing's going to improve, okay? And then recognize the bully. They will back down when you stand up most of the time. Number 8, adapt and overcome. When it gets tough, the tough gets going. We've heard that kind of saying before, right? Adapt and overcome. You generally have 2 options when things get hard. You can give up or you can keep going. And, Reno, I always like to use this a lot of times in life on success. It's like you're digging the tunnel. Most people give up when the prize or the end is right on the other side. They just don't know it.
Yeah.
Right? Like, just keep going a little bit more, they would have success. Number 9, talked about this in a lecture I did this weekend, right? Perspective comes from experience. I am a much better coach now at 43 years old than I was at 23. Hands down. I will be better at 53. And, the good thing about it, I talked to a 22-year-old coach in the gym. He's like, Jeremy, I'm really struggling with people who are a little older than me. I give them plans. They don't succeed. I'm like, this is nothing against you, but you haven't experienced life yet. You have to understand and you have to give them empathy that for their obstacle and their problems they're having, but you can't act like you totally understand it because you don't. You don't have kids yet. You don't have the responsibilities that those older people have yet as a 22-year-old. Give them empathy. Tell them you couldn't understand it, but you know that it is an obstacle, right? Because perspective comes from experience. Go do life, folks. Go do it, right? Take the calculated risk we talked about earlier. Go do life, because when you have more experience, you're generally better at anything that you are doing. And then last but not least, don't quit. If something really means a lot to you, don't quit. Take it off the board. We talked about this earlier. We have our goals with this podcast. We're not going to quit. It's not an option. Not an option. We are going to continue doing it, pushing through, and it is not an option for us to quit this in the time frame that we've given, right? We've given like, hey, we commit to this conversation you and I had back in December of this year. We are committing to this and we're not going to quit. Once we get to that time frame, we'll have the conversation again, right? Hey, we good? And then we will not quit. So I think those 10 things would be great things to not only live by ourselves, but also teach to our kids.
I think it was topic 3 and more of a question just because I don't know. But do you think that your kids are the way they are because they're learning from you of what you instilled in them? Or do you think it is kind of a natural want from them to do those checklists, to do those things because they want to?
No, I mean, I think it's you talk about nature and nurture, but I think a lot of the things is they pick up from us, right? And Katie being, Hall of Fame softball coach, me just being, who I am and learning that, like, you don't have to be the smartest person, you don't have to be the fastest person, but if you do X, Y, and Z, you're going to have success, So I think a lot of that is kids, especially, it's more of what they're growing up in than it is anything else.
Yep. And then either 9 or 10, the perspective thing. One thing that I was actually taught is in film, you always start out super low. You're the coffee getter, the donut getter, and then as you rise up, you get to touch the cameras, you get to do all these things. And the biggest visual thing that I got from them was if you turn on a flashlight and you stand next to a wall, everything that's in the light is what you have perspective on. Everything that's in the shadows is the obstacles, the things you can't foresee. And you're not able to teach people who are 30 feet behind you shining their flashlight. They see all these obstacles, they experience all these obstacles, and you're trying to coach these people. So instead, like you said, go out and live your life, go out and the more things you can experience, it kind of makes that timeline faster. So if you're 30 and you've retired from the military, you went to medical school, you did 3 things. You got to take significant steps back and shine more light on different obstacles faster than the 18-year-old kid that's trying to coach 2,700 people. That's something they just don't know. So I thought that was awesome. Yeah.
Well, that is it, guys, today. I'd love to talk a little bit more on this, but I do have another call coming up that I've got to rock out. So once again, guys, appreciate you listening. We will be back on here rocking and rolling again, and I hope everyone has a great day.